To kick things off, can you please introduce yourself, your name, your title, and what you actually do?
Yeah, what I actually do. So I'm Gill Haus. I'm the Chief Information Officer of the Consumer and Community Bank at JPMorgan Chase. Lovingly, we just call it Chase. And what I do is I manage a team of, I think, incredible technologists, about 12,000 plus technologists. And we provide a variety of services for 91 million customers across the United States, including 5,000 branches. You name the kind of product, we have it. If it's a home loan that you're looking for an auto loan, a credit card, et cetera, we manage the technology that provides that.
Okay, so I've been writing a few pieces about what keeps banks awake at night. So interesting to ask you, what keeps you up at night from a work perspective?
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. Let me tell you the non-work thing. No. From a work perspective, the first is talent. Even though we are a technology organization, it is only because of the people that we have that we're able to get things done. And so when you hire the kind of talent that we hire, of course they have options elsewhere. That's number one. Number two is, are we giving them the right tools to be able to get their job done? It's so easy to get frustrated if you don't have the tool that you want to get something done. And then are we also coaching them and giving them the guidance and the career opportunities? So that's something that keeps me up at night. The other thing that keeps me up at night is bureaucracy from a big company. So there's no surprise, it's JPMorgan, we're large. I think we operate in many ways like a startup, but it's easy for us to add some bureaucracy to a process that just slows the system down, can be frustrated. For example, it'd be easy, particularly in engineering, if we have our software delivery processes, for someone to say, we have a gap, add some kind of manual thing in the middle, but that tends to be a problem for us because it causes a bottleneck. And so can we really solve the problem the right way? And then just getting our foundations right for innovation. And this one, it keeps me up a bit more than the other two, because I know that we can nail the other two, but technology is changing really rapidly. Also, there are things that we wanted to solve in the past that we couldn't solve. Now we have new technology, Gen AI, et cetera, but are we thinking about the problems that we're solving in a new way? Or are we just kind of iterating in the small sense? And I think that, for me, we can think we're doing a lot of really great work, but we haven't really changed fundamentally how we work, and that's something that keeps me up.
This is a good setup. I want to go back to the whole careers piece, but perhaps staying on the innovation side for a little bit. How do you think about innovation? You kind of touched on it already, big, perhaps slow-moving organization. How do you consider innovation? How do you make it happen?
Yeah, well, there's a variety of ways that we innovate. And I actually think from a big company, we move at an incredible pace. We have 300,000 some people that work here. We have 60,000 technologists across the firm, but it can feel like a small company because we're constantly releasing and we're doing things every single day. The way that we innovate, though, first is there's a variety. We will buy some solutions that might be more commodity. We are using all kinds of technology that are out there. So if you name the type of technology, we're innovating in that space. It could be some heritage technologies that people know. It's cloud. You think about blockchain, we innovate there. Quantum computing as well. So we're constantly looking at those technologies. But the way that we also innovate is not just in the big innovation. A lot of times people are like, that shiny new grand spanking technology, let's apply it. Just innovating in a small process that might take an hour off of a person's task during a week. But if you have 12,000 plus engineers and you can take off 1 hour for everybody, that's incredible. Now think about doing something like that for a customer, where they had to click 3 times, you can click once, changes it for them.
And again, this is something you talked about in terms of scale. Obviously, that's pretty awesome. If you do figure something out, it scales pretty nicely. But also, you have to be very careful. You can't take too big risks. You can't jeopardize the brand or customer protection, whatever. How do you decide how to navigate that kind of Apache kind of challenges, I suppose, a network of challenges?
Yeah, I love the question. Security, making sure that we are reliable, that we're available for our customers, that's the #1 task. So we earn the right to do any kind of innovation by making sure that we are secure. What's interesting, though, is the things that we want to do to make sure that we are secure, that we are reliable. That is, an example that I'll give, again, from like a technology perspective, is how we build our software. Most of our engineers spend a good portion of their time not actually writing the code, but making sure that the code that they've written works. And why do they want to make sure it works? They want to make sure that when they put it in production, that it will work for the customer. You can do that in manual ways. You can have these really long, slow processes. Then you can't really move very quickly and stay reliable and have quality and security. But if you automate the entire flow, everything from testing the function works, but also testing that it is secure, et cetera, now, not only do you have the security, the thing you want, You also have a way to get things to production more quickly. And now you're actually able to innovate for customers, which is what you wanted to do from the get-go. So that's how we tend to approach it.
So one of the big things, you already mentioned it, is Gen AI, obviously. What can you tell us about your thoughts around how that could be leveraged internally for your own benefit or externally, accessed by customers? Do you have a roadmap, or are there kind of low-hanging fruits that you're starting with? Or
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, and it is changing so quickly, generative AI. It's hard to imagine that it was, I think, only 2.5 years ago that OpenAI released ChatGPT to the wild. Now, it was available before, but it just transformed how people actually think about it. And so we've actually talked about this in our annual shareholder letter as well, which is we know that it's going to change everything that we do. Every process, every tool, every product, which is why we're investing in AI. But we also have been investing in AI for years. We've been using this technology to provide personalization. So if you log into our website or to our mobile application and we make a recommendation for you, that's using AI. When we do our underwriting, fraud protection, this is all AI driven, and the list goes on. So we're going to continue to apply it. And the way that we think about it is to the other question you asked, which is, I want to make sure, particularly with generative AI, that we can use it to its full extent, but it operates a little differently than some other technologies. What I mean by that is some technologies in the past were a bit more deterministic. If X, then you do Y. If Y, then you do Z. With generative AI, it's powerful because you can ask it questions. It can rewrite your email for you, but it might give you a slightly different answer. We need to make sure that what we tell our customer or what we tell our employee is the right information. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we apply it with the same principles that we've applied traditional AI and ML to make sure we can get the benefit, but also that we're protecting our customers and doing the right thing for them when we apply it.
Even when you as a user log into ChatGPT, it sort of warns you that ChatGPT sometimes gets it wrong, it's hallucinations, right? How is thinking about that? I'm a customer, I log into my bank account, maybe there's a chat interface there, maybe you're leveraging AI. Are you sort of giving the same type of warning, or are you having a human overseeing everything just in case? Or how do you think about human intervention versus letting AI loose? And I guess ChatGPT is sort of letting AI loose and just flagging it for the customers to use sort of their own judgment.
Yeah, so we don't let it loose in that sense. We have human in the middle whenever we're operating when it comes to LLM, which is really the generative AI solution. And so it may be something that gives more guidance. So if you're on the call with us, we have millions of calls, people that call in to ask questions about their balance, to dispute charges, to ask for like a new card, et cetera. Sometimes we don't know exactly what the customer's saying or why they're calling, and we use generative AI to understand what the person is saying. Now, of course, you transcribe it first, and then make recommendations to one of our employees who can then talk to the customer. So that way, maybe it gives you the wrong answer. The person was calling about a Sapphire Reserve card. They weren't calling about a Chase Freedom card. It's okay because the human being that's sitting there talking on the phone is able to intermediate. And we look at applying it in all of our use cases in a similar way.
Do you think it will be like that forever, or is it a question of months or years before you can turn the human off altogether?
That's the million-dollar question. I do think the technology is continuing to evolve, and we're going to keep tabs on that. We will always use it in a responsible fashion, but as the technology gets better, and as methodologies to ensure that we have confidence in the answer get better, that's when we're able to apply it more broadly.
So you talked about talent and recruiting and retaining talent and challenging talent, perhaps. I read the other day that Meta is trying to poach people from OpenAI, offering tens of millions of dollars for the most senior AI executives. How do you, as a bank, compete with more traditional tech companies when it comes to attracting the most competent and senior or experienced person in that particular field, maybe Gen AI?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question also. Maybe the reason why I joined JPMorgan, first, there is the technology that we use. We are a big business, but we have every kind of technology that you can imagine, which is a wonderful thing, particularly for a technologist, because the magic isn't, particularly about building someone's career, is not just that I can use the latest and the greatest technology. It's can you use the latest and greatest technology, maybe some more current technology, some old technology to actually solve a problem for a customer, and you learn how to do that at scale. That's an incredibly exciting thing to do because it's harder to do, but the reward is better because if you think about the customers we serve, the 91 million customers in the United States, they depend on us every single day. The money is an emotional thing. And so it can sound a little bit weird, but people that are buying their first home, we enable that to happen. Someone who is buying their first car, or they're buying groceries, or whatever it is they're doing, trying to live the life they've imagined and live their dreams, we make that happen. And people are, every second, they're using their credit card to purchase something. And so the way that we compete is we have this incredible mission, incredible purpose. We have incredible technology that delivers on that purpose. I would love to say it's easy, but it's not. And you get to apply all of it together to build a solution. So on that one, sure, there's other companies where you could go, but the impact that you can have here and the technology that you get to touch, I think is second to none.
So you yourself...
I'm obviously biased a little bit, but yeah.
But you yourself started your career for a much smaller company, right? As a developer, kind of on the grounds, hands on deck. Yeah. And it was actually acquired by PayPal, which was, I guess, would have been beneficial to you at the time. Yeah. When a young executive or developer are thinking about joining a startup, which is inherently risky, you know, will they succeed? Will they be acquired? What advice, if you even recommend developers to consider working for startups, given what you just said about the benefit of working for you guys, how can a young executive consider evaluating a fintech to de-risk as much as possible? Are there any, did you think about that, or are there anything you've seen now, later in your career? Do you think, you know, I wish I thought about that, I could have...
I love that you brought up the PayPal example, and I worked at some other places too. Not all startups are successful, we know this happened. Maybe it was 6 months after I had joined, I was on stage and somebody asked me a question and said, you were once at this startup, and at a startup you move quickly and you can get things done, et cetera. Now you're a big company and like it feels different. What is your view? And my view is, and how I answered is, when I was at the startup, I had no money. So I had to be crafty to be able to get things done. I had to focus on the customer, make sure that everything we did was the thing we knew we needed to do, not have waste, and deliver. And then when I got to a big company, the amount of work it took for me to get the money was basically the exact same situation. So I had to be crafty and make sure the thing I was working on, et cetera, would move. So there really wasn't a difference in that sense. But there is something about being in an organization. I love the risky point that you make. When you're in a startup, sometimes they're risky, sometimes they're not, they're well funded, but you learn how to build confidence in yourself that you can live in ambiguity or in a situation where you don't necessarily know the answer. It's a bit uncertain, and you become part of the certainty. I don't know if it's going to be successful. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try and I'm going to make this happen, which is an incredibly important skill at a large company too, for two reasons. One, when you are at a large company, you may think there isn't risk, but there actually is risk. You just don't see it coming all the time, or you aren't made aware. And two, you want the company to be successful, and using those resources is incredibly important.
Okay, so after PayPal, you decided to go back to a slightly smaller startup again, if I understand correctly, and then you worked for AOL, which at the time was huge. How would you explain your career journey, like startup, big company, small company, big company again? Is there a sort of a narrative, or is it did you think of that as an organic, intentional journey, or was it more haphazard, or how would you
This is the
that?
question that I whenever I'm answering it, I feel I don't want someone to go back to their parent and say, this person didn't have a 5-year plan, what's going on? I didn't necessarily have a 5-year plan when I went to these different companies, but what I did do is gravitate towards problems they want to solve. Now, when I went to that startup, I was really excited because I had just gone through an acquisition and thought, how hard can it be? It's very hard, but I learned a lot through that. But I knew that for me, being in a position where I felt scared, so the first thing is I'm a bit scared about it, which means that I'm going to learn, and also that I'm really excited about it, which means when there's days that are harder or I don't feel as confident, I'm still going to be excited about going to work. If those two things were true, I went for it, and that helped me as I moved forward in my career.
Okay, so thinking along that trajectory of your career then, what advice would you give to a fintech executive today thinking about transitioning into a more traditional financial institution like JPMorgan? What have you seen as success cases? Where have those kinds of people been successful within your organization, or what mindset needs to evolve or change, or how have you as a bank adopted to embrace that kind of talent and that mindset, if any, or how do you think about those
The
things?
first is the customer, and we do that every day, which is why I think we operate and feel very much like a startup at JPMorgan, which is, what is the customer problem that we're trying to solve? People that are focused on the customer problem, they tend to be the ones that people want to surround themselves with and will follow, et cetera. The other is from just technology in general. technology is awesome. I am a dork. I love technology. I want to play with it all the time. But it's not technology for technology's sake. It is technology for solving an actual business problem. And so those leaders, whether it's a fintech or you join us, that are thinking about the customer and how can you apply technology to solve the customer problem, that's a winning combination. The other thing I'd add is really asking why. A lot of times people don't, there's the 5 whys and other methodologies for this, but really understanding what is the problem you're trying to solve? How does our business make money? Like, what do we do here? If you understand that, then you're better able to apply technology to really solving a problem.
So you have one of the most senior roles within IT or tech within your current organization. Where do you go from here? How do you top this? You're still young, halfway through your career.
I like you.
Plenty of opportunities to go further.
Yes. Some days I feel a little less young, but thank you. You flatter me. I looked at ChatGPT earlier and it said retire would be my next step. It's hard to know. What I do know is that I continue to love solving really complicated problems. I love that the industry is changing so rapidly because the amount of learning, I feel I go through a week and the week is over and it's one of these, wow, I have just not only accomplished so much, I've learned so much, I feel better than the Gill from the week before. So I don't know what the future holds entirely, but I do know that I love solving the problems for the customers that we have. I've been here now a little over 5 years, just the transition, the capabilities of our mobile app, the services that we provide, how we have scaled, the technologies that we're using. So happy to stay for quite some time, but again, wherever the problem takes me.
Okay, so trying to conclude everything and drawing it to a close, what would you say would be some of your biggest takeaways from your career, from working in financial services, innovation, any advice you would like to pass on to the next generation?
Yeah, one, be curious. The technology changes. The things that I studied in school are not the things that we're learning today. A lot of the principles have stayed the same, but the technology is different. And so constantly be curious, ask questions, and learn. What's interesting is, and we've all been in this situation where you're in a conference room, somebody says something or asks a question, and all of a sudden everybody starts looking around in different places, and one person answers it, and when that person answers it, everybody tries to answer at the same time. That's indicating that most people did not know what was being asked. And so always be curious and ask and have the confidence to do that. Again, true back to the customer. If you don't understand your customer, and the customer, it could be your boss, it could be an employee that works there, it could be an actual end user customer, then what problem are you actually solving? And again, be humble, help solve problems that aren't necessarily yours, because all those things can be true, but what I have seen is people love to be around other people that make them excited, that are fun to work with, especially in technology where we work a lot of hours sometimes and we have production issues. You'd rather be in the trenches with someone that you enjoy than be in the trenches with someone that you don't. And so if you're doing those things, that's my advice.
Gill, thank you very much for insight. I appreciate that.
You're most welcome.